What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about the running backs I'd be starting and sitting this week. A little bit different setup, trying to show you guys a little bit of what I look at. Obviously, there's like way more that I actually look at to see what players should be projected for. But this is just something that is quick and easy to look at to kind of get a general sense of how a game is going to play out. So on the right, we're going to see all the matchup stuff. On the left, you guys are going to see exactly where I have the rankings. Again, you guys can see throughout the week as I change the rankings, because I change the rankings every day, sometimes and oftentimes multiple times a day. So if you really want my most up-to-date take, just like, look at the rankings, thefantasyfootballadvice.com, go to your scoring format. I'm showing you half PPR for this video, but just click whatever, projection you want, running back, tight end, wide receiver, or all of them. You can select just like multiple boxes. Obviously if you want flex. We're going to do running back today though. So I'm going to go through every single matchup, show you guys some stuff, and we'll get here. So first game up. Oh, and actually we'll do stat of the day. I don't have one ready, but I'll pin one in the comment section below. So this was the stat from yesterday's video. So it was among the top 10 tight ends in half PPR scoring. Only 2 have fewer than 4 receiving touchdowns. Kyle Pitts. The other one was Mike Gesicki. So we got Matthew Schellenberg was first to get that right on YouTube, and at me, a bunch of numbers first to get that right on Twitter. Again, I'll pin a new stat of the day in this video. So let's talk about some running backs. First game up, home team, Raiders at the Cleveland Browns. These 2 games, so Raiders at Browns, Patriots at Colts, are Saturday games. I talked about that in yesterday's video. Please know that. Please set your lineups on Saturday for these games. Lowest total game of the week, Raiders and Browns, 38.5. Obviously, that was higher before this entire COVID situation for the Browns. The Browns without multiple offensive linemen, potentially all 3 tight ends. Landry's out. Hunt is out, not from COVID, from the injury. And then Baker Mayfield also out. So very, very bare bones for the Browns. All we're looking at running back is Nick Chubb. He's a must start regardless, but now he's the entire offense, right? Just getting a general sense of this game. Projected to be close. I think this could move a little bit more in favor of the Raiders, especially if more people, do get ruled out this week. But fairly neutral matchup as far as like run defenses. Both are, around league average. I only really care when we're at the extremes. So like this column here, F here, is rush defense DVOA. We've got 12th and 13th. Pretty much average. Even yards per carry allowed. If we have a team that's 12th and 26, and this is for defense, so like the Raiders defense has the 12th rated rush defense DVOA, 26 in yards per carry allowed. So matchup based, 26 is like good if you're the Browns, are allowing high yards per carry allowed. But we're only looking at extremes. So when we get to a team like the Giants, that's a really good matchup for opposing running backs. A team like the Jets, really good matchup, 30th and 29th. When we get to teams that are like both numbers are like fairly neutral, they're not at the extremes, we don't care all that much. It's much more game script related. And the game script here is projected to be close. Again, Raiders projected to be winning, but not, anything crazy. Just a really low scoring game in general. Both teams projected to score 18.5 for the Browns, 20 for the Raiders. So in general, for this rushing attack, it's pretty easy. Browns, you're playing Nick Chubb. Raiders, you're playing Josh Jacobs. Jacobs is going to get a slight ding from where he would have been had Jalen Richard not been active, or if Jalen Richard ends up not being active, because he can play this week. It doesn't mean he's absolutely going to. So that's something. Check the rankings. If you see Jalen Richard ruled out, you're probably going to see this 14.4 maybe move up to like 15.5, approach 16, because we can project a few more targets for Josh Jacobs. So that's how things could change in that game. But I think you're starting Chubb, you're starting Jacobs, you're not looking at anything else. Patriots at Colts this game. 45.5 point total, fairly average. We've got the Colts 2.5 point home favorites. I would say a negative matchup for both teams as far as the running backs are concerned. I also think there's a possibility both these teams have very good defenses. And so we'll pull them up here. Both these teams have good defenses, and they're coming off of their buys. So we could see a situation where in the first half we have like a 6-10 game, something really close, really low scoring. And so I don't think we're going to see a shootout where touchdowns are flying off the board, especially because both these teams would prefer to have their offense run through the running backs. And that typically ends up in like a lower scoring game just because there are fewer incompletions, right? If both teams want to throw the ball a ton, That's obviously good because like throwing is more efficient. You're going to move the ball down the field more, but you're also going to pick up deep pass interferences. You're going to stop the clock every time it's an incompletion. When both teams are running it, that clock just keeps going and going and going, and you're also less likely to have explosive plays. So that being said, 45.5 point total is still average. I don't think we get too far outside of this range. I think both teams in like the low to mid 20s is kind of what we're going to end up seeing here. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor, number one running back, he's just an absolute stud. You're playing him, not playing any other Colts running back. And then I have Harris and Stevenson split here. Obviously, watch the status on Damian Harris. He's got that hamstring. They want to be very careful with it. Right now, I'm projecting him in. And so that's just giving you, Harris and Stevenson as the running backs 30 and 31 on the week. So kind of like mid to low end flex plays. And that's really how I view them. It is not an easy matchup playing as a road underdog, not projected to score that many points, only 21.5 for the Patriots. And, it's a good defense, a well-coached defense in the Colts, not someone they're just going to steamroll. So I think both them mid to low end flex. Obviously, Harris is out. Stevenson kind of jumps to a must play. Next game, we've got the football team at the Eagles. So we'll bring that one up. Lower total, 44-point total. Football team only projected to score 18.5 points. Makes the Eagles 7-point home favorites. And also the Eagles have a good run defense. This is a bad spot for the football team. You're not projected to be winning. You're not projected to be scoring that many points. And you're going up against a team that has a good run defense. That's bad news for Gibson. If McKissic ends up being in, you are going to see the projection drop for Gibson. I would say maybe it drops to like 12.5, 12, something around there, and that's going to make him more of like a lower end two. Right now he's a low end one because we're projecting McKissic out, but if he's going to play, that's going to definitely decrease both the floor and the ceiling. The ceiling comes down because it's extremely unlikely that if they get into a negative game script, which is projected here, that Gibson racks up 6, 7, 8 receptions. And the floor lowers because in that game script, McKissic is in, and Gibson's on the sideline getting 0 fantasy points. So we could see a game like last week where he has a complete dud. So high variance play for Gibson, but if McKissic is in, that's really, really bad news for his ceiling and really, really bad news for his floor. I think you're starting him both ways, but you really want McKissic out if you want to play Gibson. For the football team, it's a fine matchup. Neutral as far as matchup is concerned. You're also a home favorite. 25.5 is a good total. They obviously want Hurts to be playing, right? Hurts had the high ankle sprain. He's not guaranteed to be in this game. And so if we see Hurts active, that's obviously a great thing for these running backs. If we see him inactive, obviously it's a bad thing. Miles Sanders is the best one I'm seeing in the projections. Projected 28th best running back, 10.2 points. The problem is I'm not projecting Jordan Howard in yet. If Jordan Howard ends up being active, that's really going to hurt, right? It's going to bump one of Scott and Gainwell just out. They're not going to be activated. And it's probably going to have an early down split between Sanders and Howard. And if that's the case, both of them are probably going to be projected in like the mid 30s. And I really would prefer not to play either of them. But if you had to, they'd be basically split. Howard and Sanders would probably have identical splits. You're just guessing who's going to score the touchdown. And so neither of them are good plays, but both of them are like fine if you have to. Next game, Cowboys at the Giants. We've got a 10.5 point spread in favor of the Cowboys. 44.5 point total, fairly average. Great matchup for the Cowboys. Giants 31st in rush defense DVOA, 25th in yards per carry allowed. And then we've got the Cowboys, a neutral matchup. I'll say that these numbers aren't like fantastic. 19th in rush defense DVOA, 15th in yards per carry allowed. But with that being said, it's a bad matchup when you're getting steamrolled, right? And there's a chance that Dallas just destroys the Giants in this spot. And if that's going to happen, you're just not set up well as a running back for the Giants, especially a 17-point total. You can lose by 10 points if you're still putting up 25. When you're only putting up 17, that's 1 to maybe 2 touchdowns. Now you have to score that touchdown. Also, we have this problem with the Giants that Booker's been playing. And so Barkley is not seeing 85-90% of the snaps. He saw, I believe it was close to like 55% of the snaps last week. That is not a good thing. That's capping floor or lowering floor, capping ceiling. Just bad overall. So given the matchup and given this spread, Barkley's not a running back 1. I think you have to play him as a running back 2. But if you were so lucky that you had like 4 running backs in the top 15, you can consider benching Barkley because, again, bad game environment for them, and he's not getting all this garbage time dump offs, all that work. Booker's taking some of that, and Booker's even getting work not in garbage time. So bad spot for Barkley, but I think you're definitely only playing Barkley. And then I think as running back 17 right now, that's a good spot to have him. For the Cowboys, I'm not projecting Pollard in right now because I don't know if he's going to play, but it's looking like he might. So if he is activated, Zeke is going to drop. That 13.1 projection is probably going to come closer to 12. We're going to see Pollard kind of step up, still be lower than Zeke, but in that same kind of range. Both of them will probably end up being low-end running back 2s because good spot for them, right? Giants have a bad run defense. They're projected to be winning and running the ball more, projected to score close to 30 points. Those are all good things for running backs. And so both them low-end 2s. But yeah, even with Pollard out last week, Zeke did not play well. Zeke is clearly hurt, so you really just can't project him super high. Next game, Jets at the Dolphins. Low 42-point total, which means the Jets are projected to score 16 points. 10-point spread in favor of the Dolphins. And the Jets, of course, as you know it's the number 1 matchup for running back, 30th in rush defense DVOA, 29th in yards per carry allowed. They've given up the most schedule adjusted fantasy points to the running back position. Great spot for Dolphins running back. The problem is we don't right now know who the running backs are going to be for Miami. I've got Gaskin and like Duke Johnson playing, but we could see any combination. I believe still as of recording this, Lindsey, Ahmed, and Gaskin all still on COVID IR. So if one of them's activated, they're probably going to be a smash play. If none of them are activated, do we see Duke? Do we see Malcolm Brown come back from injury? Like, there are so many possibilities. You can't go over all of them. But whoever's starting, if we think they have any semblance of talent, like just anything left, you probably want to be playing them in the flex because this is just the dream spot. The Dolphins are not going to be in a spot this good the rest of the season, right? Home, 10-point favorite, worst run defense in the league. So if you're ever playing a Dolphins running backs this week, we just have to figure out which ones it is. I don't know yet, so we can't really go over that. For the Jets, I think Michael Carter returns, but check on this one. I talked about with like Chase Edmonds last week, and we'll talk about it actually in a second. We don't always know, right? When these guys are activated from the IR, it doesn't mean that they're playing. When they're designated to return, it doesn't mean they're playing that week. This is, I believe, it's got to be a 1 o'clock game, Jets and Dolphins. So it's probably going to be at 1 o'clock. We're going to know Sunday morning. We'll probably have a good indication on Saturday night, but pay attention to that one because if he's out, now we have to be looking at like Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman in an awful spot with, of course, Zach Wilson still at quarterback, and he's just not dumping off to the running backs as much. So I would say if Michael Carter's out, I don't want to play any of the running backs. If Michael Carter's in, I think he's talented enough. I think the other running backs have not produced since he's been out enough to where he's going to get the full workload, or not necessarily 100% of snaps, obviously, but he's going to get the workload that matters. And so I think you can play him in the flex, but understand that it is obviously risky for Michael Carter. He's coming off of an injury. This is not a team that's going to score a ton of points, and it's not like they're going to, throw him out there and be like, all right, if you're even a little bit injured, you're getting all the snaps, all the touches, because they're playing for the future, right? They know Michael Carter's the future, not Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman. So definitely a risky play. Someone whose upside probably doesn't make up for it, for being completely honest. And so a fine play. Again, I have him running back 26. But for many of you, that means you're not playing him, and I'm totally comfortable benching him this week again, even if he plays. If he doesn't play, I don't want any of their other running backs. Cardinals at Lions, another huge spread, 13 points in favor of the Cardinals. Over 30, so this is the highest implied total of the week. The Cardinals are projected to be the number 1 scoring team this week. But like we said last week, I said it wasn't a good enough spot for Chase Edmonds to just assume that he was playing because we didn't have any sort of indication. This week, I have to think he's going to end up playing. Now, it's almost the reverse this week. Now, Chase Edmonds is the one that, is probably going to end up playing this week, whereas James Conner is the one whose status is more in question. Right now, I'm just projecting Conner in, Edmonds in, and I'm going to change that if we get word that Conner is out. Until that happens, I'm assuming he's playing. If he does play, I think you just have to play. You might just have to play both running backs in the spot. Like 13-point favorites, 30 points you're predicted to score as a team against the Lions, who just got absolutely obliterated by Denver running backs last week. You got to think that the same thing is going to happen this week, especially Hopkins going down with the injury. Like, you just have to imagine they're going to just run the ball as much as they can on this Detroit team. And so, great spot for James Conner. He's probably going to have a touchdown, probably 2 touchdowns if he can play. If he can't play, it's going to be like all Chase Edmonds and Benjamin. And they gave him that extra week to recover. He should be good to go this week. And so Edmonds is in a great spot regardless of if Conner plays or not. But he's in a fantastic spot if Conner ends up being out. Honestly, I think you can just play both running backs or just play whichever 2 running backs are active. I don't think you need to play Benjamin, but in a deeper format, 16-team league, if you're struggling and you're like, I just need someone for this week, I'd be surprised. But you could play Benjamin if James Conner were out. I scrolled down, but honestly, for these Lions running backs, like I know Craig Reynolds played well last week. He played just over 55% of the snaps, something like that. He played well, but he's not going to average 7.5 yards per carry. This is not a good spot. You are a 13-point underdog against a neutral matchup for running backs, but it's still just a really bad spot when they kind of came out and said Jamar Jefferson didn't play as much because he was sick all week. Like he just wasn't part of the game plan because he couldn't practice. Well, if he's going to be practicing this week, I think he's going to mix in more. And again, Reynolds averaged 7.55, I think it was, yards per carry. That is not going to happen again in this spot. And so I'm not in love with the play, but if you add him off free agency and you have to play him, I suppose it's fine. But again, you guys can see here, he's my running back 41 on the week. That's just not that great. I don't really want to play a Detroit Lions running back this week. Titans at Steelers. This game has a low 41.5 point total. Steelers are 1.5 point home underdogs. I was a little bit surprised here. Usually each week I reveal the games and then I'm like, okay, I kind of think about what I think the spread is going to be. I thought this would be 1.5, 2 points in favor of the Steelers at home. I don't believe A.J. Brown can return this week. Obviously, we don't have Derrick Henry there. The Titans have still been really, really good. I don't know. I just thought the Steelers would be 1.5 point home favorites. It's not a huge difference, but I guess Steelers being road favorites puts them in a much better spot. We can kind of more safely assume that they are the better team here, that they are going to be leading. Again, 1.5 point spread doesn't mean they're going to lead the whole game, but they're projected to be leading. And that's a big positive for D'Onta Foreman because he needs to score. He needs to be leading because Hilliard and McNichols are going to take over for all the snaps if the Titans are trailing. But if we get a game script like last week, they won 20-0 against the Jaguars. You see more Foreman because he's the early down guy. He scores that touchdown. But if they're not going to be winning this game, he's a very risky play. Also, look at the team total, 21.5. It's not that fantastic. The matchup is good, though. I mean, we saw Dalvin Cook just destroy the Steelers defense. He ran all over them. Those holes were massive. Now, they cleaned it up a bit in the second half. So if you're watching the first half, you just saw 10-foot holes, and you're like, wow, literally a bus could fit through the hole right there. Obviously, Dalvin Cook's fantastic, but anyone could have run through that. But they cleaned it up in the second half. You have to think they're going to be a little bit better this week. I'm not in love with Foreman. Having his running back 21 right now, he's so risky is the problem, right? If at any point the Steelers get up, you're not going to see Foreman on the field. And so given that the upside doesn't really make up for that, I'm totally fine benching him. It's possible I bump his projection down a little bit just to account more for that possibility that they're not winning this game. But yeah, he's fine. Running back 21, that's a low end too, possible in the flex. Gets better as you move towards standard, gets worse as you move towards PPR. Then Steelers, pretty easy, you're just starting Najee Harris every week. Texans at Jaguars up next. This is not a fun game to watch. We see Urban Meyer finally fired. That was about 15 weeks too late. He should not have been the coach. Obviously, anyone watching this team knows that it's going to end up being a positive that he's gone. The problem is, we don't know if that's going to happen this week, right? You can't just kick him out on, Wednesday, he got kicked out, and all of a sudden that next week you guys are fixing everything on offense. I do think they'll come out to play. I do think Jacksonville wins this game outright, and I do think they're going to look better on offense. All those things will happen. Just don't expect them to be a top 5 offense in the league, right? Maybe they approach league average. However, that being said, I think this is a positive for James Robinson. I think you can absolutely play him. However, I'll admit this, I thought you could play him last week and he did absolutely terrible. So I still, again, going back to him, I think he's a solid play as running back too, but understand that he had like 6 carries for 5 yards or something like that last week, not even a single target. Again, I think the offense is better, but he's obviously the only running back you're playing there, and I think he's going to have a good game this week. For the Texans, I don't really want anyone. I know this is a great spot, but it's more a great spot because Jacksonville just always loses, and so teams can just keep running the ball. It's not that Jacksonville is like the worst defense in the league. Again, 17th rush defense DVOA, 21st in yards per carry allowed. And then you've got Royce Freeman and David Johnson, right? This isn't just like some fantastic duo, right? This is an awful offensive line they're running behind, so I don't think you're playing any of them. If you really wanted to, it'd be Royce Freeman, but it is not a good play. Next up, we've got the Panthers at the Bills. Pretty average, 44.5 point total. We've got the Bills, massive 10.5 point home favorites. In a decent spot, Panthers are a better pass defense than run defense. Problem is, there's really no running backs in this game I want to play. You could play Singletary if you really wanted to, but it's probably going to be a gross rotation on a team that would prefer to throw the ball, so I don't really want to go there. And then you look at the Panthers, Chuba Hubbard is not a feature back. They are using Amir Abdullah, especially in the receiving game. I think Hubbard has 1 target in the last 2 weeks. That is not going to fly, especially in a home matchup as a 10.5 point underdog against one of the best run defenses in the NFL. They've been susceptible lately, but they are still a very strong run defense, not a spot we want to attack. And so I would prefer to play absolutely no running back in this game. Falcons at 49ers. Up next, this game has a 46 point total, 9 point home favorites for the 49ers, and a good spot, a really, really good spot. As you can see, Falcons 21st in rush defense DVOA, 23rd in yards per carry allowed, and your massive home favorites, and your team that wants to run it. I mean, the 49ers can run it as many times as they want. The problem for them is you got Jeff Wilson, JaMychal Hasty, and Kyle Juszczyk right now. I don't believe we've seen Mitchell practice yet. As of Wednesday, he was a DNP every single day. He was a DNP all of last week with the concussion. If he plays, he's in a smash spot. You're playing him. If he's out, you can play Jeff Wilson, but he looks so bad. They don't want to use him. They would much prefer Mitchell to come back. They really don't like Jeff Wilson all that much, and he hasn't been great, so it's not really making up for that. So I think if we're only seeing Jeff Wilson, JaMychal Hasty, it's like fine. Jeff Wilson can fall into the end zone, but it's not a fantastic play. It's a very low ceiling and low floor play, so I'm cool keeping him on the bench. Again, Mitchell back, you're definitely playing him. And then for the Falcons, I know Mike Davis was decent last week. He's been decent recently, but he's still just like a low-end flex play. This is not a good matchup. 49ers have a solid run defense. You're massive road underdogs. You're only projected to score like between 18 and 19 points. So I don't want to play Mike Davis. Patterson is obviously just play him every week. It's unfortunate they're turning him into like more of an early down back. Like they're not using him as much in the receiving game, but I think that could also be randomness. I think you could go out there and have an 8 target, 6 reception day for like 75 and a touchdown. So I don't want to just like give up on his receiving game role. I think it's again a little bit more randomness. The fact that we haven't seen him being like featured in that area recently. Cincinnati Bengals at the Denver Broncos. Up next, 44 point total, 2.5 points in favor of Denver. This is another one I got wrong. Most of the matchups I was able to like correctly guess who the favorite team was going to be when I looked earlier this week. This one I thought the Bengals would be like 2-point road favorites. I guess playing at home obviously is going to help every team, especially the Broncos. But I think the Bengals are a stronger team in general, and so I think that they should be favored in this spot, not by much, but by a little bit. But good spot for Denver, obviously, if you're a home favorite. Watch the status of both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. Melvin Gordon was a DNP on Wednesday, but it's a big rest day, especially for veterans. I think he's going to be completely fine. I believe it's the wrist injury. And Javonte Williams was limited with the knee injury. Just watch that. The fact that he was limited on Wednesday means he should be fine. If we see an in-week downgrade, so he's downgraded to out, like a DNP on Thursday or Friday, take note of that. If he plays, even if he's limited, like I think both these guys are going to end up playing. If they do both play, I think they're both in that like running back 20 range. Again, I have Javonte Williams running back 18, Melvin Gordon running back 22. I still prefer Williams over Melvin Gordon, but they're both roughly the running back 20, so that's the range you're looking at there. And then obviously you're playing Joe Mixon on the other side. You don't really need any analysis there. Packers at Baltimore Ravens. Up next, we've got a 43.5 point total, a little bit lower. 5.5 point road favorites for the Packers. Baltimore has the 5th best rush defense DVOA, first in yards per carry allowed. So it's a bad spot for the Packers. It's also not fantastic that last week they played really well and they gave their running backs a decent amount of touches. But Dillon had, I believe, 0 targets. Okay, he almost scored the touchdown, so that would have been still a better day. But if he's not going to have a target against a decent team in terms of rush defense, and his team total is not that high, 24.5 isn't fantastic for the Packers. This is not a great spot for Dillon. It's a little bit better spot for Aaron Jones. Take note that he had the 2 touchdowns, but Dillon got them all the way down to like the 2-yard line, and then he was tired, so he came off the field, and then Aaron Jones ran it in. It was not that, they're just always going to bring A.J. Dillon off the field in favor of Aaron Jones every single time they get into the red zone. It was really just that Dillon just got tired, he got them all the way there, and then Aaron Jones happened to score the touchdown. So they both have equal touchdown chances, but the fact that Aaron Jones has a better, role in the receiving game makes him rated higher for me. Both low-end 2s. I think you're starting both of them. Just understand that Jones a little bit better. For the Ravens, it's really only Freeman. That's the only one you can consider starting. It's not a good spot as a home underdog, and it's an especially bad spot if Lamar Jackson ends up being out this week. If Lamar plays, obviously boost to Freeman. I don't really know at this point if Lamar is going to end up playing, but just watch that. I think his projection will slightly go down if Lamar ends up being out, but it's not going to be anything crazy because they're still going to have to lean on Freeman a bit. Seahawks at the Rams up next. This game has a 45.5 point total. We've got the Rams 4.5 point home favorites. This is a really bad spot for the Seahawks. They are road underdogs going up against the Rams defense. They're ranked 2nd rush defense DVOA, 7th in yards per carry allowed. That's not fantastic. They also have a combination of Penny and Alex Collins, which is fine. They've said they're going to give Penny a chance to be the lead guy. That doesn't mean feature, but it means lead guy. It means he's going to have goal line opportunity. He's going to have a lot of early down work. Problem is, it's not really a spot that sets up fantastic for them to score points, for them to run the ball efficiently, for them to have a positive game script. And so I think Penny is fine. If you added him and you need to play him, that is okay to do so. Just understand he could easily go out there and score 5. He could easily go out there and have a 20-yard carry in the first play and pull his hamstring. And so because Rashad Penny, we have absolutely no confidence in him, but I think running back 23 is a good spot there, and then obviously not Collins. And then I'm projecting Henderson to miss, but obviously we just need to get more news. If Henderson's active, assume that it's like a 60-40 split in favor of Henderson, but if he's not going to practice all week and then be active, he's probably not going to be a big part of the game plan. So again, I don't know that Henderson's going to play, and if he doesn't play, absolutely still play Sony Michel. But yeah, I mean, we're just going to have to see this one. You guys can watch how the rankings change. The final 2 games don't need any sort of analysis. You've got the Saints at the Bucks and the Vikings at the Bears. You're playing Alvin Kamara, you're playing Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, and David Montgomery. There's really no analysis needed. It is a tough spot for both Alvin Kamara and Leonard Fournette, but the game script sets up for both of them, right? Saints are the ones that should be trailing, so receptions for Kamara. Bucks are the ones that should be favored. That's potential touchdowns. That's a lot of carries for Fournette. You're just playing both of them. You're not sitting them. And then Vikings, projected to be a relatively close game, but Dalvin Cook should not be on the bench. Obviously, we saw him at 200 rushing yards and multiple scores last week. You're obviously playing him. And Dave Montgomery just has all of the touches in the backfield, and it's a good spot. The Vikings, 27th in rush defense DVOA, 29th in rush defense DVOA, 27th in yards per carry allowed. That is a great spot for running back, getting all of the snaps. So play all 4 of those running backs. But yeah, that is a breakdown of every single team. If you guys want access to this Google Sheet, I guess let me know. All of this is just like publicly available information, so you can also just look it up on your own. And I'm not going to keep up with this sheet. All right, this isn't updating when lines change. I use Fantasy Labs. If you guys want to know where I find implied totals, spreads, totals, you can literally find that at any website. Just type in like betting lines or whatever for the week. You can find that anywhere, but that's the site that I use. But yeah, that is it for this one. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button, and how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.